Well, welcome to this week's episode of Sport Fishing. Well, this week we have a collection of different tuna trips that we've taken over the years. These trips were taped aboard some of San Diego's finest sport fishers, including the Royal Polaris, the Royal Star, the Red Rooster 3, the Excel, and the Mustang. Part of the footage that you're going to see in today's show comes from our best-selling video, How to Tuna with the Pros. So sit back and enjoy this week's tuna episode on sport fishing. One of the most important factors in having a successful tuna trip is the ability to leave the landings with good quality live bait and to have a large supply of it for chumming and attracting the fish to the boat. Now, one of the quality things about fishing out of San Diego is that they have large bait receivers where you can even get cured baits that have been around a while that are good and hardy and perfect for tuna fishing. As you can see, the crews here are taking their time not to damage the baits, but they'll fill up all the bait receivers before we ever pull away. And thanks to this, you'll see later in the show some outstanding tuna fishing.
Actually, the equipment we use for finding the fish, a lot of the fishing that we did this trip and it's typical summer fishing is visual signs on the surface. We're looking for kelp patties, we're looking for birds, we're looking for jumpers, just any visual sign that indicates fish, and there's quite a few of them, sometimes just the way the water looks. But once we get over into a particular area of fish, where we think there's fish, we're always looking at the machines. The machines tell it just about everything. We can go up on a kelp patty and I can tell you before we even get close enough to stop whether there's something on it or not. And I do that with this. This is a side scanning Westmore sonar, and it'll look out as far as 1,000 feet, but accuracy on the size of the fish and the size of the schools that we're looking, I think we're best off when we're looking at 600-foot range. So we have the capabilities at all times to look out around the sides of the boat. I look at 180 degrees. This is the center, this is us. So we're looking from side to side, 600 feet, and in a semicircle, 600 feet away from the boat. So like when we go up on a bird school, when we go on a kelp patty, jumpers, whatever, I always check the thing out, the school out, whatever we're going to be fishing with the machines. And sometimes it's not worth our time or a waste of bait to stop on things. And how we know that is by how much fish is actually there with the side scanning sonar. And once we see it on the sonar, let's say I saw a school of fish out here to 20 degrees to the port, 600 feet. We start going towards it. Communication with the stern. I'm telling the guys, stand by, stand by, stand by. And you don't necessarily want to throw bait or try to get on a school that you can't drive over. That's another really good indication if it's biting fish or if it's fish that's just trying to stay away from the boat. If you can get them on the sonar but you can't get them to come underneath the boat, you may as well not even stop. It's just things that we've learned over the years and communication with the other skippers and things. But so we're looking for the stuff out away from the boat with the sonar, and then we're trying to ultimately get it to come under the boat, and that's where we use this machine here. This is looking straight down underneath the boat. It's a fixed beam at a 33-degree angle. So once we start seeing them from this machine to this machine, that's when we'll start throwing bait, do our circle, and if they continue to stay under the boat, we'll stop, and hopefully the fish will start biting. So those are the two machines that are the most used as far as visually seeing the fish underneath the water. But everything else is used. This particular machine here is the radar, and the radar, what it does is it shows you everything above the surface of the water. That's more of a navigational aid than it is a fish finding piece of equipment, but it's all used in correlation. Like 2 or 3 boats will be out west of you, northwest of you, and you'll hear them on the radio say, yeah, we're getting this or we're getting that. And at that point, you'd look for them, with the radar. Not only punch them into your GPS, which is your positioning machines, put in their position, you get a course and a distance, but you start looking for them on the radar, and you watch for indications of lines of fish. Fish usually, when they're an area of them are in some sort of a configuration. It might be a northeast-southwest line, it might be a northwest-southeast line, whatever. As you're coming into an area of boats that are stopped, you're always looking at the radar to see what configuration that area might be. It's just another tool that you use. Water temperature gauge up here, that's something this time of year that's critical, especially in bluefin tuna fishing. It's absolutely critical. The bluefin will get on a little water break that's maybe 4/10 or 5/10. For instance, 68.5 now. We might come across an edge of water that goes to 68.9. Doesn't seem like any big deal. If it's a real sharp edge, those fish will lay right up against that edge. They'll be in that 68.9. And you can zigzag back and forth on that edge, and just, you'll come into the warm side, you see fish. Go into the cold side, nothing, and you just kind of try to locate stuff that way too. That's another tool we use for.
Well, even though today's modern sport fisher is loaded with all kinds of electronics to help the skipper find the fish, a lot of fishing still comes down to the crew members using binoculars and spotting jumping fish. Another thing the crew looks for is anything floating, like kelp heads.
Okay, hi, my name is Rollo Hine from the Royal Polaris in San Diego out of Fisherman's Landing. Before you come long-range fishing for tuna, there's a few things I'd like to talk to you about in the way of tackle, proper tackle. First off, the size of the fish indicates what size gear you're going to use. If you're going to be fishing for school-sized yellowfin from anywhere from 10 to 40 pounds, or bluefin in that same range, normally a 25 to 40 pound test outfit would be more than adequate. A Newell 338, a Penn 500 Jig Master, or a Daiwa SL50 would be an excellent choice. Something you can cast, but still feel comfortable with fighting a fish. 30 or 40 pound line is what we use the most of, and always use a high quality line. Berkley Big Game, Andy, Maxima, Iserline, all big names work the best. Coupled with a nice light to medium action rod such as a 665, Calstar or Sabre, 865XH. The list goes on, but something roughly 6 to 7 feet in length. Something, once again, that you can cast, but not too long that it would hurt you when you're fighting a fish. On the terminal tackle end of this outfit, we'd like to suggest the number 2-0, 3-0, or 4-odd size live bait style hook. This is used for fishing with live sardines or live anchovies. As the fly fishermen say, match the hatch. Match the size of the hook with the size of the bait you're going to be using. Live sardines and anchovies are just about always the best selection for fishing for tuna. Now, once we get into a little bit bigger fish, say fish in the 30 to 60 pound range, as we often encounter at Alejos Rocks or offshore San Diego, you want to start stepping up your tackle a little bit. We like to suggest a Penn 4-odd, 113/8 Senator, the Penn 4.0 GL lever drag reel, or the Penn 30 wides, 30 TWs, things like that, the 2-speeds are excellent selections. 50 or 60 pound test completes your line on here. For rods, once again, something in the 6 to 6.5 foot range works excellent. The numbers are far too numerous to mention here. 660 XH, 64, 65H. Go to your local tackle dealer and see what they think is the best. Once again, something not too long, but something that you feel comfortable casting with. As far as what size hook to use, you're going to be using bigger line, so therefore you're probably going to be using bigger bait. We would suggest a 4-aught, 5-aught, or 6-aught hook, okay? And speaking of hooks, especially when you get into larger size tuna, we recommend the Owners or the Hayabusas. We call them the designer hooks. They cost more, but they're worth every penny. They never straighten out, and they don't break, and they are very, very sharp. We have landed tuna up to 275 pounds on little 2-aught style Owner hooks. They work the best for bigger fish, so don't be shy about using something like that. Now that was for the 30 to 60 pound fish. Now, on long trips, 16 through 18 days, when we encounter the yellowfin tuna up to and over 300 pounds, we would suggest international style reels, lever drag reels, Pen 50 wides, Pen 50s, Pen 80s. The Shimano TLDs go up to the 50 to 80 size is good. The Shimano Tiagra is an excellent selection also. Lever drag as opposed to star drag, and 2-speed all the way. You gotta have it. 2-speeds work so good that we don't know how we ever caught big fish without them in years past. They'll make you an expert overnight. They're the best. 80 or 100 pound test fits the bill here. Fishing with larger baits such as large salami mackerel or scad, or even chunks work excellent also. Heavy line, you've got to have heavy line for the abrasion resistance. The fish don't seem to care, especially when you're eating a bait that's 2 to 4 pounds in weight, okay? On the bottom end, as far as what hook you want to use, if you're using a live sardine for these big tuna, which work good in seasons past, I'd recommend a 2-aught, 3-aught, or 4-aught style Owner hook. These are the best, like we said, for holding big fish, even though they're very, very small. And fishing with live sardines for the bigger tuna, we tie directly to the hook. No leader required. However, on the long trips, many times, such as I said, we're using large mackerel anywhere from 2 to 4 pounds in weight. That's when the best rig you can use is a heavy mono leader. 150, 175, or 200 pound test, approximately 3 feet in length.
Fishtails is brought to you by Checkpoint Hook and Knife Sharpeners.
This week's Fishtails comes to us from Greg Tanji of Montebello. Greg caught this jackpot yellowfin tuna while fishing aboard the Shogun. He landed this 30-pound fish on 15-pound line. Congratulations, Greg. That's a nice fish. For being on Fishtails this week, Greg will receive a copy of my new book, Saltwater Fishing Adventures. Send your photos or videotape today, because a free book goes to everyone who is our Fishtails of the Week. Send your fishtail photos and any questions or comments to Sport Fishing, P.O. Box 90, Montebello, California, 90640.
Danny! Yes! Baby.
Yes!
Big fan, he's on.
Hey, that bad boy.
Making a bait, and just got it out there. And I got bit. Got a few lines around it here. It's part of the game here, just trying to get free. We'll work our way away from everybody. Coming through.
Oh, you
Did get on, dude.
Yeah.
fly line there?
Yeah, right on the top. So what we're trying to do first thing is just get away from everybody, and the fish is cooperating. So now we can start fishing. This should be a bluefin. So for someone that's new to this, what would you suggest? They hook a fish like this, Just start kind of try to short pump it, or
Yeah.
hold on? And
One of the problem most people with bluefins have is they just don't pull. And the fish will be soaking for a while.
Fish
And the
get too
hooks just pull
strong.
out because there's a real big hole in them all. People just don't pull hard enough on them.
So you actually want to pull pretty hard?
Yeah. Depending on the size line you have.
Yeah, I got 40 on here.
You can pull plenty hard with 40 pound.
Okay. And you really don't want to lift too high there, right?
Right. 1 or 2 lines at a time is all you need.
There we go. Just coming back. This fish has really kind of been nice to us. Kept us away from the stern so far. Up on the bow, there's not very many people fishing up here. That's one of the nice things when you're fishing on a boat this big. How long is this boat?
124.
124? We got about 50 of it to ourselves right here.
Yep.
Do it again, right here. Again, down.
Yeah!
Good job.
Woo!
Good job.
Thanks.
Gene's going.
All right. Woo! Now that's a bluefin. Yeah, he's a crew member aboard the XL. And Pat's the one that was helping me around the bow there and keeping all the lines out of the way. And you get in a fish like this, or really even on a local trip, the crew has a lot to do with your success during the day. And because Pat was able to get me free out of those quick tangles and get me around the bow and watch my line around the sides of the boats, I was able to get this fish. So thanks a lot, Pat. Appreciate it. All right.
The tip of the week is brought to you by Checkpoint Hook and Knife Sharpeners.
This is a kidney belt right here, or a back harness, and Andy's going to be showing you how to put this on properly and make sure it's comfortable on your lower back here. What I do is just put that on just like you're putting a kidney harness on or a kidney belt on. It fits on your lower back there. It's very, very comfortable. It actually makes your back feel good when you have this on. Got that nice and snug in place. And what we like to recommend is a plate type belt, not a material belt, a leather belt, or a vinyl belt, because the rods you're going to be using have gimbals on them. They really dig in, and then when you're trying to pull on them, they can really hurt you. Where you have a plate belt like this, it really takes the pressure off you and allows you to concentrate more on fighting the fish than hurting yourself. And you're not out here to hurt yourself, that's for sure. Let's snap that on. Now these belts are designed mainly to be used in your legs and a little bit in your back. You see how this plate comes down almost to the bottom of his knee. You see a lot of people make the mistake of holding up, putting their plate on really high like that. That is very improper. The bottom of that plate goes almost to the bottom of your knee. So when you rock back, your pressure using all this muscle on your legs, which is some of the biggest muscles in your body there. Any size guy or woman can fight fish using this type of gear. You don't even have to use your hands or anything. You just sit there on your legs and you can just sit there all day with a fish. The guys, the hot shots, the big muscles trying to pump all day like that, they're not going to last. They're not going to last on a fish. We're going to go ahead and strap a rod in right now for him. Now, in adjusting your rod here, when this thing is up to the rail right here, this is going to be start off about 45-degree angle. You can put it a little more if you like. It depends on how much load you can take on you. At this load here, you can see he's pretty comfortable. He can even let go, and he can sit there like that all day on a fish. That's how you determine the load right there. If you made it a little bit higher, he can put a lot more load on the fish, but then it's putting a little more load on him also. So you want to get that to where you're comfortable. It's going to start off, if the rail is right here, it'll start off about like that, about 45 degrees. You can go a little higher if you want. Depends on your rod, how stout of a rod you're going to be using, and so forth. that. Now, the reason we have the 2-speed reels is, sure, when you're first hooking one and it's staying out away from the boat a little bit, you can put it in high gear because you're able to turn the fish's head no problem. So if it's sitting right here, when your tip's out like that, you're at high speed right there. There's no reason to be in low speed. Now, for some reason, that is not every time. For some reason, if you're not getting any line and you feel you can get a little line in low speed, by all means use it. But for the most part, you're going to be able to take line at high speed at this angle. As the fish comes down below the boat, right here, that's when people have trouble turning the fish. The head is always wanting to point down, and they're trying to go for too big of a wind. And the more big of a wind you go for, the more cranks, the more the fish drops his head, and then he's pulling on it again. He's actually taking line every time you're dropping it instead of gaining line. So now you're just going to flip it in low gear. Now it's going straight up and down. Now when he's flipping in low gear, he's just going to sit there and rock and wind on his rod. Rock and wind, and notice he doesn't even take big cranks. You don't even have to take a full crank. When you start to get a feel on how that fish is coming, you can either get your full cranks or a half a crank or a quarter crank. The main objective here is just to get line on the reel in any mount, any way you can. But the best way to do it, you're going to see, is he's very comfortable. You notice the plate harness there. All that harness gear is really taking off the load. He's not even going to break a sweat fighting the fish like that. You rock and wind it there. We're just going to keep him rock and wind it. He's not even letting my hand drop down. If he was going for a big crank, you'd see my hand go down like that, and that would be the same as the fish's head. And that's just not going to work for you. And that's our demonstration on the fishing the bluefin this year.